Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Crimson Panda here with another Mercenaries video. As you all know, we have a very big update coming to Mercenaries tomorrow, which will include that long-awaited excess coin fix and a new task rework system where everybody will have access to every single task from the get-go, which means you'll be able to unlock a mercenary and then instantly have that task available for the mercenary. No need to wait for a daily task to appear, and no longer will you have to go after a mystery stranger to find it. So what I've decided to do to try and help all of the new players that I'm so anxious will start playing the game because this really important update, and also the returning players, is to do a priority upgrading guide for every single mercenary in the game. So if you're a new or returning player, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so that once you unlock a new mercenary, you can head back to the video if you get stuck on what you need to upgrade first. Now, there are over 100 mercenaries in the game at the moment, so I won't be able to do all of these guides in just one sitting. So what I'm planning on doing is a part 1 and part 2 for the protectors, fighters and casters over the next week or so. So with that all being said, let's head over and check out part 1 of protectors. So to kick things off, we have Alexstrasza. So Alexstrasza hasn't seen much PvP play, but what she has seen, she's gone into a pretty obvious tribe, and that is dragons. So in my honest opinion, I reckon that Flame Buffet would probably be the priority ability to upgrade, because anything that manipulates damage by dealing damage to neighbors or any other source of extra damage is really strong in mercenaries. So yeah, Flame Buffet will definitely be the priority thing to upgrade, followed closely by Dragon's Queen Gambit. Now this doesn't seem very good at first glance. It deals damage equal to an enemy, equal to their attack, but there is a lot of units that can buff up their attack, so this is a very strong ability on one specific target. And carrying on from that, the Amulet of Swiftness, which increases it to 4 speed, is absolutely bonkers with the actual Gambit itself. So that would probably be the priority equipment to upgrade. So it would go Flame Buffet, Dragon Queen Gambit, and then Amulet of Swiftness. And then after that, you probably would want to just upgrade your Dragon Breath, get all of your abilities maxed out as fast as you can, and then start working on the other 2 equipments once you feel happy that you've got your abilities done and your priority equipment. The second priority equipment would probably be the Dragonflight Talisman, so that you can heal for the damage that you dealt, but it is a lot better in mercenaries to be quicker than your opponent. So this one, the amulet, is definitely better to start upgrading. Next up, we have Baine Bloodhoof. Now, Baine is an absolutely nutty mercenary, and he's only a rare. This mercenary is probably one of the best ones in the game, and the priorities you want to be doing with Baine is chain heal first of all. Being able to restore your characters and then having that bounce to other characters is crazy. Once again, the cheating out buffs because of the adjacent characters is huge. Closely followed by the Earth Mother Fury. You are able to combo this out with specific mercenaries, which this makes it deal insane amounts of damage and puts all of your cooldowns of your opponents, if you get a kill, back to their original values, which is crazy. They are the 2 abilities you want to upgrade first of all. I would recommend doing this absolutely last. It doesn't see much play once it's in a PvP match. You want to be protecting your units and doing massive damage in just one swing. So definitely upgrade these 2 first of all, followed by the equipments here. Totemic Mastery is the absolute most wanted equipment for Baine, so definitely upgrade this one first, and then I would recommend going for a Chieftain Feather after that, and then the Herbal being the last one, and also the Might being the last one on your abilities. So you go Chain Heal, Earth Mother Fury, Totemic Mastery, and then even Chieftain Feather before even the Might. The Might occasionally is okay, and yes, you do need to use it if you've used Chain Heal and Earth Mother Fury, especially if you Earth Mother Fury first and then Chain Heal, because you won't have any other abilities to use. So definitely upgrade this to 5 if you have the extra coins, but I would prioritize Chain Heal, Fury and Totemic Mastery. And next up we have Brann. Now Brann is a epic mercenary, and he hasn't seen much play as much as some of the other mercenaries in the game. He is a tech card, if anything. Being able to double out an ability is what he's mainly used for. So the priorities here, in my opinion, will either be extra spirit if you're going for a full explorer one, which isn't really a thing, but it is the adventure pack. So the adventure pack is definitely priority on the equipments because it makes all of your abilities 3 speed faster and gives you shadow resistance. Shadow is very good in mercenaries, so you definitely want to try and resist that if you can using this. Plus it speeds up all your other abilities as well, which is fantastic, which puts the summit to 0, Trusty Whip to 2, and Bronze Spirit for 5. So he hasn't actually seen much PvP play other than when he's going to Spirit. So I reckon, in my honest opinion, is upgrade the pack first and then start going for your abilities, because you're not going to be using him until he is absolutely ready to be used. You're not going to try and get 3 on each and then try and use him. He has to be pretty big in order to survive and make an impact. So Trusty Whip, any of these abilities are good. If you're using him specifically for a combo turn, then I would recommend doing Bronzebeard Spirit first. If you're using him to try and prevent as much damage as you can, then obviously the Summit, being able to crit with them, is also good. So in my opinion, I would just bounce between all 3. Once you've got the coins to upgrade something, then just choose among yourselves depending on what it is you actually want to use Brann for. Okay, next up we have Cairne Bloodhoof. Now, the abilities you want to be prioritizing on this mercenary and the equipments is reincarnation. First of all, being able to bring a merc back from the dead is insane. You'll see it with the casters later on in the series, but this reincarnation is basically the only equipment this character ever really uses. So you can actually ignore these until you have enough to even max them, but reincarnation definitely is the priority equipment. As of the abilities, you want to do endurance aura, because this is going to speed you up if you're going to be using the Diablo combo with this. So definitely prioritize the aura, and then you're going to want to go for the Earth Stomp, because this is going to slow enemies down quite a lot and deal a nice AoE damage. Uppercut, not really an issue. Do this last out of the abilities, and then as of the Swift Totem, doesn't really ever get played, and neither does the Thunderous Sash. So you only really want to do Endurance Aura, followed by Earth Stomp and Reincarnation. Next up, we have Cariel Roame. Now, Cariel Roame is an interesting mercenary. It's actually carried you through some of the early game, especially if you're a brand new player. So the priority ones on here, depending on the way you want to use it, is obviously you're going to be upgrading it as you go. So you're going to want to be doing Crusader's Blow probably if you're doing it from the get-go and PvE, sorry. But if you're doing it for PvP, which once again it doesn't see that much play in PvE, the only time you would see this is if you're actually using Crusader's Blow for a death rattle in order to heal up all of your mercs, because restoring 60 health to this merc and then pairing it with the Crusader's Blow heals your other characters as well is absolutely crazy if you can pull it off in a human buff comp. So for PvP wise, you are definitely going to want to be prioritizing Hammer of Dawn and obviously Crusader's Blow, because that's what she's there for. The other stuff doesn't really get used. Taunt isn't very good, even though it's a turn 1 taunt, it's not good in PvP. Seal of Light doesn't really do a much buff for the speed and the cooldown, so you don't really want to be using that. As of PvE, the Tomb of Light, which while you have taunt has plus 12 attack, is absolutely bonkers. So if you're using it for PvE, then definitely go for the Tomb of Light. And also the taunt is very good because you taunt up and then you gain the extra 12 attack, which is great for the early stages of PvE. Seal of Light given an extra 4 attack doesn't ever see play. Seal of Light very rarely gets used, especially in PvP. So Crusader's Blow, Hammer of Dawn for PvP, but the Taunt and the Tomb of Light for PvE. Next up, we have Cornelius Roame. Now, Cornelius is a very good mercenary, one of the freebies again. He will carry you through a lot of the PvE stuff, being able to taunt up and heal your units, especially in the early games. But for PvP, he is basically specifically used in the Smite combo. So if you're going to be using this for the Smite combo builds, then you are going to want to be one, prioritizing Shield of Dawn. Taking 3 less damage may not seem like a lot, but in PvP it is absolutely a massive amount of damage. And then you're going to be wanting to Blessing of Sacrifice. Prioritize this one because not only do you protect a mercenary, and this takes it as well, it also allows you to open up your combos with that. Hold the Front is very good if you're using it in a holy comp, so being able to heal 2 adjacent mercs, like I said before, anything that can heal more than 1 unit is very strong. Martial Mastery very rarely gets used unless you've buffed Cornelius up to a stupid amount. It might get used once every like 100 games, so yeah, not really a priority there. You want to go Blessing, Hold the Front, Shield of Dawn, absolutely mandatory having this one. And then your Band and your Striking Gaunts aren't really used ever either. It's always Shield of Dawn because that 3 less damage is absolutely bonkers. Next up is Deathwing. Deathwing is a very fun mercenary, but only in very specific types. So obviously he is a dragon, you want to play him in a dragon comp or even in a fire comp if you can get the right situation off. So he very rarely sees PvP unless you have a very specific archetype you're trying to counter by taunting on turn 1, because this is just a better turn 1 taunt. He isn't really used for a lot. So priority wise for his equipments, depending on what you want to use. If you want to use it for a fell, then gains +4 fell damage, which is very nice, especially whenever a dragon summons you get to gain control of it. So a very niche meta. The Resolve restoring 10 health once an elemental dies doesn't ever get used, and the Claw of Terror is just extra damage, which is always good, but you're not going to be using that very often either. It is good for dealing damage to the neighbours, which obviously will be 13 and can crit the greens. So out of all of them, it is very much the heart if you're going for a dragon comp and not fell, but Demon Soul if you want to be running him in a fell build. As of the abilities, you're going to want to be doing all of them kind of roughly at the same time with the other ones. None of them stand out and are specifically broken, so you want to just be upgrading them as and when you want to use them and what you want to use them for. So if you want to upgrade Claw of Terror because you want to use him as an attacking unit, then that's fine, but if you're going to want to be using him for a turn 1 taunt, then I recommend upgrading this one. The AoE, very dangerous, dealing 10 damage to your characters unless you're running a build where you're not taking too much AoE because you're getting protected by other stuff, then fine, but it's never going to be able to kill off anything and repeat the ability, especially with only 10 damage. You will have to buff this up with a specific fire comp, like I said. Okay, next up we have the first Naga of the bunch, and that is Karathress. Now this one, once again, doesn't see a lot of PvP play, so being able to decide what abilities are best to upgrade are depending on when the meta changes and if you want to include this into the changing meta. So as of the equipments, a friendly Fathom Guard doesn't really restore health to this merc. After it attacks, it doesn't really attack. You're not going to be summoning something for it to survive long enough to attack with that. Yes, you can summon one and summon a second one if you combo it with Frost, but it's very niche and you're not going to really be doing that. Cataclysmic Bulk, hitting the lowest health enemy is huge. I would probably recommend upgrading this one first and foremost, being able to target off some of those units that you can like chip down with faster abilities and then use this to kill them off. Very strong. The Cataclysmic Bolt dealing an extra 20 damage and doing adjacents is good if you're going to be bringing this merc off the bench. It will not survive a turn 1 onslaught. And then Blessing of Tides, gain 5 attack for each friendly Naga. Unless you're running this in a full Naga build, then this isn't going to buff up very much, and it has to come off the bench because, like I said, the cooldown will hurt this mercenary, so you won't be able to use that on turn 1 when you probably would like to. And Blessing of Tides affects all of your Nagas summoned by minions and has 2 cooldown, would just destroy this when it's out on turn 1. So you would definitely have to Cataclysmic Bolt be your priority upgrade, and then probably even just go for the Hullbreaker just on the off chance that you are going to use this from a benchmark and be able to do at least a lot more damage than just the 22. So it will go Bolt, maybe the Hullbreaker, and then Tidal Strike, times because you obviously want your abilities up, and then probably the Fathom and then the Brooch. Next up, we have Garrosh Hellscream. Now, you would think Garrosh, being a huge character in World of Warcraft, would be a strong mercenary here in Hearthstone, but unfortunately, that's not the case. He was good when there wasn't very many mercenaries, but he is an OG merc, so his power level needs to be changed. Hopefully it does get changed in the patch, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to give us a bunch of balance changes as well, but we'll have to wait and see for that. And at the minute, as he stands, he is not very strong. As it goes for the upgrade, you would probably want to just be doing the Horde Strength gains 8 more health, so that you can gain as much health as you can from the Horde Strength, especially if your opponents are using summon comps. You'll be able to benefit from this, getting quite a lot of health. Unfortunately, that's not going to help you too much because his other abilities are pretty meh. So you got to take 5 less damage this turn, attack an enemy, attacks back. Could be good if he was stronger, and you say stronger where you can give your orcs attack. This is on cooldown. You can't do this on turn 1. There is other mercenaries that do support orcs, but Garrosh never really makes the cut unless, for whatever reason, he just gains a ridiculous stat boost, which just doesn't happen at the moment. He doesn't see very rarely in PvP because there's just too much good stuff, and he won't fit into it unless there's a specific orc build where people aren't expecting what you're playing, and you can kind of sneak a win in through that way. So as it goes for upgrading this one, you've got Horde Strength will be the first one, followed by the Tusk of Mannoroth, and then you'll go for probably just your abilities here, starting with probably the attack, and then you'll be going for your 2 other equipments. Dueling Gauntlet is very memey. If you have less than 50 health, it comes battle to the death. Pretty fun, but not really very good. And then the Battle Shout restores 15 health to your orcs. Probably better than the Dueling Gauntlets if you're running a full orc deck. Next up, we have Genn Greymane. Now, Genn is a very new mercenary. As you can see, I've not even upgraded him fully myself. So priority-wise, you're probably going to want to be doing Blistering Bullet. This is dealing 12 damage, transforming into a Worgen. So this is a very fast deal damage ability. It's a lot better than the Space Maker. Space Maker isn't doing a lot. It's dealing a lot of damage and gaining attack, but it's just a too slow ability. So you definitely want to start with the Bullet. And as of the equipments go, I've been using the Strength because I've been using it in an even build. So every time you cast an even speed, restore 10 health to them, which is very good to try and cheat out some heals. The other 2, as you can see, I've just been bouncing between the 2 because they're not really a priority. And then I went for Space Maker because I feel it's better than just buffing your other humans and Worgens with a taunt being summoned, because you're not really playing this in a human, unless you're playing it in a human buff build. This is only going to buff Genn, which isn't really that strong, especially if all you're doing is dealing damage and not actually attacking. So it would go the Bullet, straight into the Strength, Space Maker, and then between these 3, probably the ability first, and then the two equipments. Okay, next up we have Garrosh. Now, Garrosh is a free legendary mercenary that we all get at the start of the game, and he is actually a good legendary mercenary. So he's dropped off the radar a little bit in PvP now, but before he was very, very strong, and his staggering stam is still very strong. He can 2-speed slow a character down by 6 and deal 10 damage to them. So if you're afraid of something killing you or doing a combo, you can just slow it down to prevent a combo, which is absolutely huge. And that is actually one of the only reasons he's ever used in comps. He never really attacks with this, and he very rarely uses Battle Fury. So it's definitely Staggering Slam, the priority ability. The priority equipment will be Halt and Sash, which just gives it extra damage, which is 15 damage. It's huge because it will do 30 to a green if you're trying to slow it down, which is a massive amount of damage. And then as of the other stuff, just go straight for Blood Fury and Battle Fury, sorry, and then straight into Blood Favor. And then the other 2 equipments as well. The Battle Fury as full more attack would probably be better, but you're always going to be running the Halt and Sash, and you're always going to be using Staggering Slam on that turn 1. Next up, we have Gruul. Now, Gruul sees absolutely no PvP at the moment. Even though there is more dragons in the game than there ever has been, he's just not strong enough to deal with how nutty the dragons are. I'll run through the priority equipment and what you should probably use with him. So you're probably going to want to be doing Dragon Slayer to deal damage to extra dragons. And then you're probably, as the equipment, you're going to want to be doing, he has 15 attack while the enemy has a dragon on the battlefield. The only time you ever teching Gruul is if the meta becomes so dragon heavy that you're guaranteed to go up against a dragon when Gruul comes out, no matter what, which unfortunately isn't the case at the moment. So Gruul doesn't see any play. So you want to go Dragon Slayer shot into the Dragon Claw Fists, and then probably the Crazed and the Darkmaw. The Darkmaw is actually pretty decent because the dragon gains 15-15 in rush, so it's going to attack if your opponent has a dragon. So this will actually be a 30-30 with rush, which is nuts, but that is very, very niche. So I'd go Dragon Shot, Dragon Claw into Dragon Maw Poacher, and then your Crazed Flurry and your other two equipments. Next up is King Mukla. King Mukla is an awesome mercenary. He has had plenty of PvP time and he has some really, really good abilities. So first of all, his big brother will be your priority equipment. This summoning a taunt from a battle cry was the very first battle cry which summoned a unit straight away, which prevented a lot of combos, especially from Valeera. That's obviously not the case anymore because we have other mercenaries that are better and do summon better stuff, but he did some fantastic prevention in PvP, all thanks to Big Brother, so definitely go for that. Next up, you're going to want to probably just be going through these equally again. His Banana Fury is the first, Banana Frenzy, sorry, is the first ability you can use with this. So I would recommend doing this one first so that you actually have something to do on turn one, which is powerful. By giving 5 bananas, that's an extra 5/5 to random units and even himself. So it just makes it a little bit better, especially if you want to be running the radioactive bananas, which each banana gives 5 attack. So that is very, very strong. Next up, you're going to want to be doing Dinner Time. Dinner Time is probably okay to protect yourself if you don't have a taunt unit or they are running a very fighter heavy comp for some reason. Then Dinner Time will obviously help protect your other units. So very, very good ability at 1 speed taunt. This is on cooldown, so you'll always have to frenzy first, and then obviously your primal power because you want to do your abilities fast. And then depending on where you want to go with Mukla, if you want him to be a powerhouse with the radioactive, then go for that. But if you want to try and heal up, go for that. Like I said, all of these equipments are very, very good. I prefer banana, then Big Brother, radioactive bananas, and then refreshing, because you always want to go for attack on your units and do damage instead of just trying to prevent damage coming in, especially with Mukla. And then the abilities you're going to want: Banana Frenzy, then Dinner Time, then Primal. Primal's great if you're running it in a beast build and you can get some absolutely nuts turns off with King Crush. If that's what your plan is, then skip Dinner Time and go straight to Primal power after your Banana Frenzy. Next up is Kurtrus Ashfallen. Now, Kurtrus Ashfallen once again hasn't seen much PvP because he's very much a niche mercenary that kind of forces your opponent to need a demon to get any sort of real benefit off. His I-beam probably was pretty good at one point, but isn't very good in PvP. So what we're going to be looking at here is you probably want to be running passive 4 attack and always crits demons, just so Kurtrus gets a little bit more attack. That would probably be the strongest equipment. And then you're obviously going to want to be doing your Demon Slayer first because it's a 3 speed, which is pretty decent, and it's the only thing he can have off cooldown if you're going to want to open up with Kurtrus, because they're running a demon build and you know that. If it's in a tournament situation, then maybe a tech card for demons could be okay. And then you've got Aimless Assault, attack a random enemy. If it's a left or right, gain immune. Pretty good. Probably want to do that next. And then I-beam. I-beam is only restoring a little bit of health to this mark, and it's unless you're going to crit a blue and gain 24 health, which is probably the only good outcome, you're going to be attacking with this mercenary more than anything. So definitely go for the Demon Guard and the Demon Slayer as your first 2 equipment and ability, and then just work on your other abilities and then work on your other equipments after that. Lokholar the Ice Lord. Now this mercenary is absolutely broken. Once again, only a rare, kind of a little habit that Blizzard have where the rares are just absolutely bonkers. Now the first and foremost thing you want to be doing on his equipment is Frigid Wind. So passive, after an enemy acts, gain +4 frost damage, which might not seem like a lot, but if 3 of theirs act before you, this is going to be +12 damage, which if you're using Hailstorm with +12 damage, that's 15, which repeats 5 times to random enemies, which if this hits a green is 30 damage. You can get some absolutely crazy hailstorms off with the help from Frigid Winds. Plus, it's not just frost damage that he gives himself, it's frost damage he gives to your whole team. So your other frost units are going to be doing huge damage as well, and they are different colors to Lokholar. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of this frost stuff, but Lokholar is by far one of the craziest mercs that came into the set. And being able to Hailstorm and Frigid Winds to buff your team is just crazy. So the priority upgrades are Frigid Winds 100%, and then you go from Hailstorm and then Hailstorm straight into a Frost Shock. I feel Frost Shock is better. Not Frost Shock, sorry. You want to go Frigid Winds, definitely 100%. Hailstorm for your first ability, 100%. And then you want to go Snowball to deal massive damage, because he gains 5 each time another Frost ability is cast. So if you're running a Frost build, this is going to gain quite a lot of damage, including with the Frigid Winds, because this is quite slow. They are 100% going to go before you. So Snowball can absolutely smash something ridiculously amount. And then you want to go for the Frost Shock after that, followed by Icy Flows and Icy Focus, and then the Shroud of Ice Lord. Next up we have Lord Jaraxxus. Now Lord Jaraxxus is a very solid demon mercenary, and the reason behind it is his Fist of Jaraxxus. So this is dealing 50 damage to a random enemy and repeats for all your other demons. So if you have 3 demons, maybe even more because you summon a Fell demon on turn 1, then he is going to do quite a lot of damage, and he can do quite a lot of damage. So the upgrade priorities here would be Fist of Jaraxxus first of all. Try and get this to 15 damage because it's huge. Then you want to go for your Fell Inferno, because this was on cooldown but is no longer on cooldown, and being able to summon one of those on turn 1 to follow up with Fist of Jaraxxus is good. So you want to get as much health on this as you can. And then as of the priorities, it kind of depends for the equipments. So if you're using it for Fist of Jaraxxus to always target lowest health, then obviously go for this. But if you're using it in a Fell build and you want your Fell Inferno to have as much damage output as you can, or all your Fell abilities, then Fell Core giving your additional +3 Fell damage to your Fell Infernos is absolutely nuts. That will put Fist of Jaraxxus onto 20 damage, and it's going to repeat a minimum of 3 times if you have 2 other demons. So this is very, very good. I would rather go Fist of Jaraxxus, Fell Inferno, Fell Core, and then the Gauntlet, and then the Legion and the Amulet completely last, because yes, Fist of Jaraxxus deals 5 more damage, but you would rather get that 5 damage elsewhere because it's going to buff your whole team as well. Next up we have Maiev Shadowsong. Now he hasn't seen hardly any PvP either. Being a legendary merc, he's probably one of the worst ones. The only time he's really seen PvP is when people were trying to imprison people to try and stop their abilities that were trying to obviously go crazy. So deal 10 damage to a merc, its ability gains cooldown equal to the number of their bench mercs. So if you're losing the match and they have like 2 more mercs on the bench, then their ability is going to gain 2 cooldown, which is pretty good. At a 10 speed it's very slow, not enough damage. So that's why he doesn't really see much play. But if you did want to use him, then the upgrade priorities I would probably recommend is Imprisoned first of all, because that's the one I've seen, to try and slow down combos. And then you probably want to go for the equipment where your characters take 10 less from attacks, I guess. This is obviously a passive, so you don't need to do anything with it. And if you stick him in the middle, you could get a benefit off of this. I don't see why Single-Minded Pursuit would need any more attack, because it's just you're not really going to be using it. I mean, I guess you are going to use it if you play this on turn 1 and your opener, because it's the only thing you can do. Gain 10 attack and attack an enemy, loses bonus if the merc is a different target. 9 times out of 10 it probably will be a different target, so it's very, very difficult to call this one. Imprison would be my first guess, and then obviously the adjacents take 10 less from attacks, but it doesn't see much play. Definitely upgrade your abilities in order, possibly, maybe even Imprison in order, just go 1 on each of them. He's not really that much used, so it's difficult to say which ones he fits into. Maybe he'll go into a Night Elf build at some point. Maybe he will get a buff. So yeah, I would go Imprison, Shroud, and then any of the other 4 probably just bouncing in order. Next up is Malfurion Stormrage. Now, Malfurion has seen a lot of PvP. He is probably one of the staple nature mercenaries in the game, all because of Scenario Surge. So Scenario Surge speeds up all your nature abilities by 3. Now, speed is an absolute massive thing in mercenaries, so being able to speed up stuff that is really slow to make them playable is very, very good, and that would be his priority ability to upgrade. And then his priority equipment will be Light Roof Staff. This is probably the only equipment he uses, because whenever you cast a nature ability you restore 6 health to all of your characters, which you can scale with healing mercs, or you can just get the 6 health and do it 3 times in 1 turn, which is obviously 18 health is a nice amount of health to heal out of nowhere, just because you're using abilities. Next up, after that, probably go for the Entangled Roots, because this is very niche. You probably want to be rooting something if you ever use this. You would only use this over the Scenario Surge in desperate times to be able to either kill off a unit by dealing the extra damage, or to just stop something from attacking you and killing one of your mercs. And then you've got the Archdruid's Call. This is a very nice ability. Being able to deal damage or heal is very good, especially being able to heal in the late game if you haven't got quite enough heals from your just nature casting. So there are the 3. You definitely start with the Surge and the Light Roof Staff, and then go Roots, Archdruid's Call, and then the other 2 whenever and if you have the spare coins. Okay, and last but not least for this episode, we have Mannoroth. Now, this is another demon. He hasn't seen much play, but he has some very unique abilities which made him tried out in the early stages. He unfortunately doesn't see too much anymore, but the one I'm talking about here is Howl of Terror. So reduce the attack of all enemies by 15 this turn, and they lose stealth. So Belira was a big part of getting stealthed up and remaining stealth, so they had to add stealth loss to quite a lot of the AoE abilities, and this just happens to be one of them. 15 attack is very good, but unfortunately it's on cooldown. If this was off cooldown, I'm sure Mannoroth would see play, but unfortunately it's not. It's on a cooldown, so you can't really use this on turn 1, so it makes it a lot less worse. So you've got the Terror Charge here, just giving demons health is probably the priority you're going to want to use, because you're only ever going to run this in a demon deck, and giving your demons extra health is obviously huge. It's a little bit slow and doesn't do too much unless you're buffing him, which if you're running a demon deck you're not going to. Fell Leash would obviously be next, because dealing 10 damage, being a Fel and they can't heal, you can obviously buff this, so it's a 4 speed, do decent amount of damage. So I would definitely go with Terror Charge first, Howl of Terror, because it is a good ability, and then as of the equipments, you probably just want the Terror Charge to give extra more health. You just want to give extra health to your mercs. So being able to give 13 health to your demons is a very good amount of health to buff up. There are other ways and other better ways to do it, but if you're running a demon comp, then yeah, that's probably the only way you're going to want to do it. So I would start with Terror Charge, then go into Pit Lord Staff, and then Howl of Terror, Fell Leash, and then the other 2 as and when you have the spare coins. So that is it for the first 19 protectors of part 1 of the upgrade priority guide. Let me know what you think in the comments below. While you're down there, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that thumbs up button, so if this helped you, it can hopefully help other people as well. And I will see you in the next episode and the next video.